The super cycle. It's a cycle. Welcome, Rachel, to dumb, low IQ people wasting time talking about nothing. Okay, I'm reading here. I'm creating some clips for YouTube. This is called On the Difference Between Things, De Referentia Rerum. But, O my son, although thine ultimate nature be universal, thine immediate nature is particular. The way to the center is not oriented as that of any other being, and thine elements are not kin, but alien to his. For shame! It is not the most transcendent of all the wisdoms of this cosmos that no two beings are alike? Lo! This is the secret of all beauty, and maketh love not only possible but necessary between everything and every other thing. So then, lest thou in thine ignorance take some false way and divagate, must thou learn thine own particular and peculiar nature in its relation to all others. For though it be illusion, it is by the true analysis of falsehoods that we are able to destroy them, just as the physician must understand the disease of his patient if he is to choose the fitting remedy. Now therefore will I make yet more clear unto thee the value of thy dreams and fantasies and gestures of thine unconscious body and mind as symptoms of thy particular will, and show thee how thou mayst come to their interpretation. On the silent will, de voluntate tacita. All disturbances, O my son, are variations from equilibrium, and just as thy conscious thoughts, words, and acts are effects of the displacement of the conscious will, so is it in the unconscious. For the most part, therefore, all dreams, fantasies, and gestures represent that will subliminal. And if the physical part of that will be unsatisfied, its utterance will predominate in all these automatic expressions. Do thou then note what modifications thereof follow such changes in the conscious foundation of that part of thine will, as thou mayst make in thy experiments therewith, and thus separate, as saith Trismegistus, the fine from the coarse, fire from earth, or as we may say, assign each effect to its true cause. Seek then to perfect a conscious satisfaction of every part of this will, so that the unconscious disturbances be at last brought to silence. And then will the residuum be as it were an elixir, clarified and perfected, a true symbol of that other hidden will which is the vector of thy magical self. Vector? Aleister Crowley must have known mathematics. De formula summa, on the supreme formula. Learn moreover that thyself includeth the whole universe of thy knowledge, so that every increase upon every plane is an aggrandizement of that self. Yet the greater part of this universe is common knowledge, so that thyself is interwoven with other selves, save for that part peculiar to thyself. And as thou growest, so also this peculiar part is ever of less proportion to the whole, until when thou becomest infinite, it is a quantity infinitesimal and to be neglected. Lo! When the all is absorbed within the I, it is as if the I were absorbed within the all. For if two things become wholly and indissolubly one thing, there is no more reason for names, since names are given to mark off one thing from another, and this is that which is written in the book of the law. Let there be no difference made among you between any one thing and any other thing, for thereby there cometh hurt. But whoso availeth in this, let him be the chief of all. On the way of inertia, de vae inertiae. Of the way of the Tao I have already written to thee, O my son, but I must further instruct thee in this doctrine of doing everything by doing nothing. I will first have thee to understand that the universe, being as above, said in expression of zero, under the figure of the dyad, its tendency is continually to release itself from that strain by the marriage of opposites whenever they are brought into contact. Thus, thy true nature is a will to zero, or an inertia of doing nothing, and the way of doing nothing is to oppose no obstacle to the free function of that true nature. Consider the electrical charge of a cloud, whose will is to discharge itself in earth, and so to release the strain of its potential. Do this by free conduction. There is silence and darkness. Oppose it. There is heat and light, and the rending asunder of that which will not permit free passage to the current. On the way of freedom, de vae libertatis. Do not think then that by non-action thou dost follow the way of the Tao, for thy nature is action, and by hindering the discharge of thy potential thou dost perpetuate and aggravate the stress. If thou ease not nature, she will bring thee to disease. Free therefore every function of thy body and of every other part of thee according to its true will. This also is most necessary, that thou discover that true will in every case, for thou art born into dis-ease. What are many false and perverted wills, monstrous growths, parasites, vermin are they, adherent to thee by vice of heredity, or of environment, or of evil training. And of all these things the subtlest and most terrible, enemies without pity, destructive to thy will, and a menace and tyranny even to thyself, are the ideals and standards of the slave gods, false religion, false ethics, even false science. On the law of motion, de lege motus. Consider, my son, that word in the choral key of the 30 ethers. Behold the face of your God, the beginning of comfort, whose eyes are the brightness of the heavens, which provided you for the government of the earth, and her unspeakable variety. And again, let there be no creature upon her or within her the same. All her members, let them differ in their qualities, and let there be no creature equal with another. Here also is the voice of true science, crying aloud, variation is the key of evolution. Thereunto art cometh the third, perceiving beauty in the harmony of the diverse. Know then, O my son, that all laws, all systems, all customs, all ideals and standards which tend to produce uniformity, being in direct opposition to nature's will to change and to develop through variety, are accursed. Do thou with all thy might of manhood strive against these forces, for they resist change, which is life, and thus they are of death. On the laws against motion, de legibus contra motum. Say not in thine haste that such stagnations are unity, even as the last victory of thy free will is unity. For thy will moveth through free function according to its particular nature, to that end of dissolution of all complexities, and the ideals and standards are attempts to halt thee on that way, although for thee some certain ideal be upon thy path, yet for thy neighbor it may not be so. Set all men a horseback, thou speedest the foot soldier upon his way, indeed. But what hast thou done to the birdman? Thou must have simple laws and customs to express the general will, and so prevent the tyranny or violence of a few, but multiply them not. Now then, herewith I will declare unto thee the limits of the civil law upon the rock of the law of Thelema, on the common need, de necessitate communi. Understand first that the disturbers of the peace of mankind do so by reason of their ignorance of their own true wills. Therefore, as this wisdom of mine increaseth among mankind, the false will to crime must come constantly more rare. Also, the exercise of our freedom will cause men to be born with less and ever less affliction from that disease of spirit which breedeth their false wills. But in the while of waiting for this perfection, thou must by law assure to every man a means of satisfying his bodily and his mental needs, leaving him free to develop any superstructure in accordance with his will, and protecting him from any that may seek to deprive him of these vertebral rights. There shall be therefore a standard of satisfaction, though it must vary in detail with race, climate, and other such conditions. And this standard shall be based upon a large interpretation of facts, biological, physiological, and the like. On the freedom of the body, de libertate corporis. There shall be no property in human flesh. Every man and every woman hath right indefeasible to give the body for the enjoyment of any other. The exercise of that right shall not be punished either by law or by custom. There shall be no penalty either by loss or curtailment of liberty, of rights, of wealth, or of social esteem. But this freedom shall be respected of all, seeing that it is the right of the bodily will. For this same reason thou shalt cause full restriction and punishment of any who may seek to limit that freedom for the sake of his own profit or desire or ideal. Every man and every woman hath full right to either to grant or to deny the body, as the will speaketh within. This being made custom, the evils of love, which are many, extending to the disturbance not only of body but of mind, and that in obscure paths shall little by little disappear from the face of his unspeakable glory. And the freedom of the mind, de libertate mentis. There shall be no property in human thought. Let each think as he will concerning the universe, but let none seek to impose that thought upon another by any threat of penalty in this world or any other world. Look now, though I enkindle thee to effort in thy way, yet it is the way of thy will, and I say not even that thou dost well to haste therein, for the whole matter lieth in thy will, and to force thyself against thy nature would be an obstacle to thy passage. But if I urge thee to run well this race as an athlete, it is because I have perceived in thy nature that fierce lust and mighty concentration in that will, and I write this letter unto thee, knowing well that thou wilt rejoice exceedingly therein, since it is an expression of thine own will, and it may be a discovery thereof, which thing thou vehemently seekest. I charge thee therefore that thou permit none to tyrannize any other in thought, or to threaten, or in any other wise to blaspheme the great liberty of our Father, the Son, in the great cosmos, or of his vice regent in the little. Vice regent in the little. Okay, this is 36 on the freedom of children, de libertate iuvenum. O thou that art the child of mine own bowels, how shall I write to thee concerning children? For herein is the Gordian knot, in our whole rope of wisdom, and it may not be severed by sword, no, not of a greater than Alexander the two-horned, and it is a balance like that of the egg. And the violence of a Columbus will but crack the tender shell which we must first of all preserve. Now, sentinel to this fortress standeth a certain paradox of general application, and in this large order I will declare it, so that its particular sense may enlighten thy mind hereafter. And this is the paradox, that there are bonds which lead to slavery, and bonds which lead to freedom. All we are bound in many fetters by environment, and it is for ourselves in great part to determine whether they shall enslave us or emancipate us. And I will make clear this thesis to thee by the way of illustration. On cultivating strength through discipline, de vai per disciplinam colenda. Consider the bond of a cold climate, how it maketh man a slave. He must have shelter and food with fierce toil. Yet thereby he becometh strong against the elements, and his moral force waxeth, so that he is master of such men as live in lands of sun, where bodily needs are satisfied without struggle. Consider also him that willeth to excel in speed or in battle, how he denieth himself the food he craveth, and all pleasures natural to him, putting himself under the harsh order of a trainer. So by this bondage he hath at the last his will. Now then, the one by natural and the other by voluntary restriction have come each to greater liberty. This is also a general law of biology. For all development is structuralization, that is, a limitation and specialization of an originally indeterminate protoplasm, which latter may therefore be called free in the definition of a pedant. On the ordering of things, de ordine rerum. In the body, every cell is subordinated to the general physiological control, and we who will that control do not ask whether each individual unit of that structure be consciously happy, but we do care that each shall fulfill its function, and the failure of even a few cells or the revolt may involve the death of the whole organism. Yet even here the complaint of a few, which we call pain, is a warning of general danger. Many cells fulfill the destiny by swift death, and this being the function, they in no wise resent it. Should hemoglobin resist the attack of oxygen, the body would perish and the hemoglobin would not thereby save itself. Now, O my son, do then consider deeply of these things in thine ordering of the world under the law of Thelema. For every individual in the state must be perfect in his own function, with contentment, respecting his own task as necessary and holy, not envious of another's. For so only mayst thou build up a free state, whose directing will shall be singly directed to the welfare of all. On the fundamentals of the state, de fundamentis civitatis. Usama, what do you want to say, Usama?
Hello, I just wanted to continue. I really like what you read, so you can continue.
Oh, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I knew you were going to say that. All communication is hypnosis.
Yeah, I guess so. Who you were reading for? Was that Alan Watts?
No, that's Aleister Crowley.
I have to Google him because it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Alan Watts, it's kind of funny. I don't think he ever mentions Crowley because I don't know. I'm sure he read Crowley. I bet he did. I bet he read a lot of stuff, but he never really. He talks about some of the. He says he was always a student of William James, who is an American author publisher. He was a Harvard student. I have these books called The Writings of William James. It deals a lot with. I don't know William James that well, but Crowley deals a lot with Taoism, Chinese philosophy, and Hindu philosophy, as well as Christian philosophy, and Kabbalah. He's big into Kabbalah. He talks about Islam, Muslims, Mohammedans. He incorporates all the world's religions. He's like the movie Dune, but a 1900 version of, you know. He's like Alan Watts, but I don't know. He's different. He's unique because I think it's Victorian era time. So like he was the hashish smoking, world traveling composer of all the world's religions. He synthesized his own world religion, essentially declaring himself the prophet and the master. It is a cult. It's called OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, or Freemasonry. Say it with a fart.
I'm shopping for cults, and usually they disappoint me. But what I hear today was really good, so maybe I will join them.
Yeah, if you like books, you're technically in the book cult. It's a book club. That's what all cults technically are, is a book club. When they go out and they start doing, subversive political treachery, then it goes into domestic terrorism.
Right. He writes in his style. Like when I join the room, I just have to sit for a couple of seconds, and then the hypnosis starts immediately. And I really like that because not everybody can hypnotize me easily.
Mm-hmm.
Because I usually am critical. I say, oh, there's this problem here and there's a problem that, and so on and so on. And there is few who can do that. Like I like Emerson. He's very famous.
Yeah.
Like Waldo Ralph Emerson, and it's just it's great stuff, man. I just found him. His name is Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, I just found him. I would see what he had.
Yeah, hypnosis, creating a flow state, is really in the way that you read. If you can't read fluidly and it's all choppy, you can't really induce a state of deep relaxation within the listener or yourself. So I have this CDs on Ericksonian hypnosis, and he gives two examples of people reading scripts, and one person reads it all broken and choppy, and the other person reads it, fluidically. So it's like music, basically. Nobody wants to listen to choppy music.
It's a skill that you really have, but there is a lot of great people who record themselves. You can do that, I think. And when I listen to Emerson, I don't read because English is my second language. I do engage in that. But there is people on YouTube who already read him fluently.
Mm-hmm.
They can make you in that state where just the idea comes,
Mm-hmm.
and you interpret things I used to get afraid. Like I used to always say, "Oh, what I understand is it what the reader want, the writer want, or is this how other people who read this guy understand him?" But after knowing Emerson, he just broke that. He encouraged you to build your own world, like your own interpretation. You don't care. This idea, like when you are in the stage flow and someone is reading and you just keep connecting ideas and there is this endless stream, you should embrace that because for him that comes from the oversoul.
Mm-hmm.
Is where you should be. You shouldn't care about other people. You should just make your own interpretation what you're listening or what you're reading and so on.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's mind control. A lot of people have wandering minds, and so the whole thing is being in control of your essentially equilibrium. And when you come on this app, it's such a toxic app that that's why I kind of competitively am reframing these rooms as low IQ stupid people talking about nothing, wasting time, because I want to remind myself of the opportunity cost of listening to people talking about nothing. So, you know, I like reading these books because it's therapeutic. I think it helps people who are listening to it. And I think, it's the best way to spend my time because I have access to these books and I have the time or the willpower or the focus of concentration to actually read it. But it is boring reading these books by myself. I guess the expression is that where two or three are gathered in my name, the presence will be felt. So, you know, if you do your own types of studies, I would encourage you to try to create like a book club. And because if you like the presence and you like getting smarter, and plus record it because then you can listen to it, in a different state of mind. And you're creating a record or you're capturing the presence in a way.
Right. That would be nice. I already have one book club. Me and this other friend who is a doctoral student. We read Kant together,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. This is the only book club that I have. It's really fulfilling. But what was the book that you were reading now?
The book I'm reading now is called The Book of Wisdom or Folly by Aleister Crowley.
Wisdom of Folly. Yeah, that's good. Talking about the biological part is really important. Like there is this thing in biology that's completely different, and the people who notice it, I understand immediately that they have great mind. Like there is unity and multiplicity in everything. Like you can say, like take an apple, and there is the apple as unity, and there is the redness and the hardness and so on and so on. But you kind of can separate them. You can take redness, there is apple creams, and you can take hardness, there is squishy apples and so on. So you have opportunity to play around and do weird things and separate between the unity and multiplicity. But when it comes to living things, it's completely different. As Alistair was saying now, if a cell die, the whole thing, the whole unity would crumble. It's just so it is kind of dynamic, and the unity and multiplicity are connected in one thing, and it's just fascinating that most people don't notice that. I think that's why living things make you lively. Like if you go around and watch butterflies or a tree or bird or something like that, it's just I think it reflects something about us because ourselves are the same thing. Like we are this unity that that have parts, but these parts are what constructs the whole. And they are connected, and every part is important. Everything is the whole unity is multiplying itself in the smallest thing, and so on and so on. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, micro, macro, macro, micro, mouse and elephant, Earth and sun and galaxy, galaxy and universe. I mean, Atomos is the uncuttable. So, but apparently, even in the micro universe, you can just keep, it's just parasites on parasites on parasites. The big and the small.
Keep cutting. But we think some things as if they are not alive. Like, for example, the unity of, for example, gravity. We think that it is separable from the things that it affects. But I feel that just because we live inside the whole organism, I think the whole existence is just like that. It's a living thing that everything, as Alistair was saying, that's why you are in a mission. Just like you are a small part, just like the cell, working inside that great thing, and you have your own purpose, and you are important, and this thing is living, and every part of it is important, especially the living parts, because they most resemble it. Like, I think that's why Scripture always is the image of God. Yeah, this self-relating unity that controls itself and regulates itself, and so on and so on. It's just like the universe all the time. You can keep reading if you feel like it. I was really enjoying that.
Okay, I'll read a few more of these. Hope you're enjoying it. This is the Wisdom. This is the Book of Wisdom or Folly. This is chapter 38. It's called On the Ordering of Things, De Ordine Rerum. In the body, every cell is subordinated to the general physiological control, and we who will that control do not ask whether each individual unit of that structure be consciously happy, but we do care that each shall fulfill its function, and the failure of even a few cells or the revolt may involve the death of the whole organism. Yet even here the complaint of a few, which we call pain, is a warning of general danger. Many cells fulfill their destiny by swift death, and this being their function... Yeah, we already read this one. Okay, this is on the fundamentals of the state. 39 De Fundamentis Civitatis. Say not, O my son, that in this argument I have set limits to individual freedom. For each man in this state which I purpose is fulfilling his own true will by his eager acquiescence in the order necessary to the welfare of all, and therefore of himself also. But see thou well to it that thou set high the standard of satisfaction, and that to every one be a surplus of leisure and of energy, so that his will of self-preservation being fulfilled by the performance of his function in the state, he may devote the remainder of his powers to the satisfaction of the other parts of his will. And because the people are oft times unlearned, not understanding pleasure, let them be instructed in the art of life, to prepare food palatable and wholesome, each to his own taste, to make cloths according to fancy, with variety of individuality, and to practice the manifold crafts of love. These things, being first secured, thou mayst afterward lead them into the heavens of poesy and tale, of music, painting, and sculpture, and into the lore of the mind itself, with its insatiable joy of all knowledge. Thence let them soar. On the will of children, De Voluntate Iuvenum. Long, O my son, hath been this digression from the plain path of my word concerning children. But it was most needful that thou shouldst understand the limits of true liberty. For that is not the will of any man which ultimateth in his own ruin, and that of all his fellows. And that is not liberty, whose exercise bringeth him to bondage. Thou mayst therefore assume that it is always an essential part of the will of any child to grow to manhood or to womanhood in health, and his guardians may therefore prevent him from ignorantly acting in opposition thereunto, care being always taken to remove the cause of the error, namely ignorance as foresaid. Thou mayst also assume that it is part of the child's will to train every function of the mind, and the guardians may therefore combat the inertia which hinders its development. Yet here is much caution necessary, and it is better to work by exciting and satisfying any natural curiosity than by forcing application to set tasks, however obvious this necessity may appear. And the method of argument, de modo disputandi. Now in this training of the child is one most dear consideration that I shall impress upon thee as in conformity with our holy experience in the way of truth. And it is this, that since that which can be thought is not true, every statement is in some sense false. Even on the sea of pure reason, we may say that every statement is in some sense disputable. Therefore, in every case, even the simplest, the child should be taught not only the thesis, but also its opposite, leaving the decision to the child's own judgment and good sense, fortified by experience. And this practice will develop its power of thought and its confidence in itself and its interest in all knowledge. But most of all beware against any attempt to bias its mind on any point that lieth without the square of ascertained and undisputed fact. Remember also, even when thou art most sure, that so were they sure who gave instruction to the young Copernicus. Pay reverence also to the unknown unto him. Thou presumest to impart thy knowledge, for he may be one greater than thou. De voluntate Iuvenis cognosced, unknowing the will of a child. It is important that thou shouldst understand as early as may be what is the true will of the child in the matter of his career. Be thou well aware of all ideals and daydreams, for the child is himself and not the toy. Recall the comic tragedy of Napoleon and the king of Rome. Build not an house for a wild goat, nor plant a forest for the domain of a shark. But be thou vigilant for every sign, conscious or unconscious, of the will of the child, giving him then all opportunity to pursue the path which he thus indicates. Learn this, that he, being young, will weary quickly of all false ways, however pleasant they may be to him at the outset, but of the true way he will not weary. This being in this manner discovered, thou mayst prepare it for him perfectly, for no man can keep all roads open forever, and to him making his choice, explain how one may not travel far on any one road without a general knowledge of things apparently irrelevant, and with that he will understand, and bend him wisely to his work. On the red gold de oro rubeo, I should have thee to consider, O my son, the word of Publius Vergilius Maro, that was the greatest of all the magicians of his time. In medio tutisimus ibis, which thing hath also been said by many wise men in other lands, and the holy Kabbalah confirmeth the same, placing Tifereth, which is the man, and the beauty and harmony of things, and gold in the kingdom of metals, and the sun among the planets in the midst of the tree of life. For the center is the point of balance of all vectors. So then, if thou wilt live wisely, learn that thou must establish this relation of balance with everything soever, not omitting one. For there is nothing so alien from thy nature that it may not be brought into harmonious relation therewith, and thy stature of manhood waxeth great, even as thou comest to the perfection of this art. And there is nothing so close kin to thee that it may not be hurtful to thee, if this balance be not truly adjusted. Thou hast need of the whole force of the universe to work with thy will, but this force must be disposed about the shaft of that will, so that there is no tendency to hindrance or to deflection. And in my love of thee, I will adorn this thesis with example following. On wisdom in sexual affairs, de sapientia in re sexuale. Consider love. Here is a force destructive and corrupting, whereby many men have been lost. Witness all history. Yet without love, man were not man. Therefore thine uncle Richard Wagner made of our doctrine a musical fable, wherein we see M. Fortas, who yielded himself to seduction, wounded beyond healing. Klingsor, who withdrew himself from a like danger, cast out forever from the mountain of salvation, and Parsifal, who yielded not able to exercise the true power of love, and thereby to perform the miracle of redemption. Of this also have I myself written in my poema called Adonis. It is the same with food and drink, with exercise, with learning itself. The problem is ever to bring the appetite into the right relation with the will. Thus thou mayst fast or feast, there is no rule but that of balance. And this doctrine is of general acceptation among the better sort of men. Therefore on thee will I rather impress more carefully the other part of my wisdom, namely, the necessity of extending constantly thy nature to new mates upon every plane of being, so that thou mayst become the perfect microcosm, an image without flaw of all that is. Okay, chapter 45, on the equal steps to knowledge. De gradibus archaea scientiae. I say in sooth, my son, that this extension of thy nature is not in violation thereof, for it is the nature of thy nature to grow continually. Now there is no part of knowledge which is foreign to thee, yet knowledge itself is of no avail unless it be assimilated and coordinated into understanding. Grow therefore easily and spontaneously, developing all parts equally, lest thou become a monster, and if one thing tempt thee overmuch, correct it by devotion to its opposite, until equilibrium be re-established. But seek not to grow by sudden determination toward things that be far from thee. Only if such a thing come into thy thought, construct a bridge thereunto, and take firmly the first step upon that bridge. I shall explain this. Dost thou speculate upon the motives of the stars, and on their elements, the size and weight? Then thou must first gain knowledge of things mathematical, of laws, physical and chemical. So then first, that thou mayst understand clearly the nature of thine whole work, map out thy mind, and extend its powers from the essential outwards, from the near to the far, always with firmness and great thoroughness, making every link in thy chain equal and perfect. 46 on the virtue of daring, de virtute audendi. Yet this I charge thee with my might, live dangerously. Was not this the word of thine uncle Friedrich Nietzsche? Thy meanest foe is the inertia of the mind. Men do hate most those things which touch them closely, and they fear light, and persecute the torchbearers. Do thou therefore analyze most fully all those ideas which men avoid, for the truth shall dissolve fear. Rightly indeed men say that the unknown is terrible, but wrongly do they fear lest it become the known. Moreover, do thou all acts of which the common sort beware, save where thou hast already full knowledge, that thou mayst learn use and control, not falling into abuse and slavery. For the coward and the foolhardy shall not live out the days. Everything has his right use, and thou art great as thou hast use of things. This is the mystery of all art magic, and thine hold upon the universe. Yet if thou must err, being human, err by excess of courage rather than of caution. For it is the foundation of the honour of man that he dareth greatly. What saith Quintus Horatius Flaccus in the third ode of his first book? Die thou standing. On the art of training the mind, mathematics, de arte mentis colendi mathematica. Now concerning the first foundation of thy mind, I will say somewhat. Thou shalt study with diligence in the mathematics, because thereby shall be revealed unto thee the laws of thine own reason and the limitations thereof. This science manifesteth unto thee thy true nature in respect of the machinery whereby it worketh and showeth in pure nakedness, without clothing of personality or desire, and the anatomy of thy conscious self. Furthermore, by this thou mayst understand the essence of the relations between all things, and the nature of necessity, and come to the knowledge of form. For this mathematics is as it were the last veil before the image of truth, so that there is no way better than our holy Kabbalah, which analyzeth all things soever, and reduceth them to pure number, and thus the natures, being no longer coloured and confused, they may be regulated and formulated in simplicity by the operation of pure reason, to thy great comfort in the work of our transcendental art, whereby the many become one. Continued Classic, Sequitur Classica. My son, neglect not in any wise the study of the writings of antiquity, and that in the original language, for by this thou shalt discover the history of the structure of the mind, that is, its nature regarded as the last term in a sequence of causes and effects. For thy mind hath been built up of these elements, so that in these books thou mayst bring into the light thine own subconscious memories. And thy memory is as it were the mortar in the house of the mind, without which no cohesion or individuality possible, so that it is called dementia. And these books have lived long, and become famous, because they are the fruits of ancient trees whereof thou art directly the heir. Wherefore, say I, they are more truly German to thine own nature than books of collateral offshoots, though such were in themselves better and wiser. Yea, O my son, in these writings thou mayst study to come to the true comprehension of thine own nature, and that of the whole universe and the dimension of time, even as the mathematic declareth it in that of space, that is of extension. Moreover, by this study shall the child comprehend the foundation of manners, the which, as saith one of the sons of wisdom, maketh man. Continued science. Sequitur Scientifica. Silence, time, and space are the conditions of mind. These two studies are fundamental, yet there remaineth causality, which is the root of the actions and reactions of nature. This also shalt thou seek ardently, that thou mayst comprehend the variety of the universe, its harmony and its beauty, with the knowledge of that which compelleth it. Yet this is not equal to the former two in power to reveal thee to thyself, and its first use is to instruct thee in the true method of advancement in knowledge, which is fundamentally the observation of the like and the unlike. Also, it shall arouse in thee the ecstasy of wonder, and it shall bring thee to a proper understanding of art magic. For our magic is but one of the powers that lie within us undeveloped and unanalyzed, and it is by the method of science that it must be made clear and available to the use of man. Is not this a gift beyond price? The fruit of a tree, not only of knowledge but of life? For there is that in man which is God, and there is that also which is dust. And by our magic we shall make these twain one flesh, to the obtaining of the empery of the universe. How magical law works. De modo quo operit lex magica. Give ear attentively, O my son, while I expound unto thee the true doctrine of magic. Every force acteth in due proportion on all things with which it is connected. Thus a burning forest causeth chemical change by combustion, and giveth heat and motion to the air about it by the operation of physical laws, and exciteth thought and emotion in the man whom it reacheth through his organs of perception. Consider, even though it were but legend, the fall of the apple of Isaac Newton, its effect upon the spiritual destinies of man. Consider also that no force cometh ever to the end of its work. The air that is moved by my breath is a disturbance of change of equilibrium that cannot be fully compensated and brought to naught through the eon be endless. Who then shall deny the possibility of magic? Well, said Fraser, the most learned doctor of the College of the Holy Trinity in the University of Cambridge, that science was but the name of magic, which failed not of its intended effect. On the mechanism of magic, De Machina Magica. Lo, lo, I put forth my will, and my pen moveth upon the paper, by cause that my will mysteriously hath power upon the muscles of my arm, and these do work at a mechanical advantage against the inertia of that pen. I cannot break down the wall opposite me, by cause that I cannot come into mechanical relation with it, or the wall at my side, by cause that I am not strong enough to overcome its inertia. To win that battle I must call time and pickaxe to mine aid. But how could I retard the motion of the earth in space? I am myself party of its momentum, yet every stroke of my pen effecteth that motion by changing the equilibrium thereof. The problem of every act of magic is then this, to exert a will sufficiently powerful to cause the required effect through a menstruum or medium of communication. By the common understanding of the word magic, we yet exclude such media as are generally known and understood. Now then, O my son, will I declare unto thee first the nature of the power, and afterward that of the medium, on the harmony of the soul with the body, de harmonia anime cum corpore. Okay, I'm gonna end it. This is like as long as I can read. Hope you enjoyed that, Usame and Rachel.
That was fantastic, man. Thank you for reading.
Yeah, you're welcome. Rachel, I hope you like that. Hope it creates more balance in your life for you, more equilibrium and joy.
He's completely new to me, but kind of like him. And he looked weird. That's a good sign. you know, he looked like Winston Churchill a little bit.
Yeah. It was written at that time, so.
Yeah, he's Nietzsche a little bit, so he was after Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, originally published 1962. So he's that period. Interesting period. Yeah, I love he tackles you know, great themes like he was talking about necessity, for example, with mathematics and space and time. He really talk about things that are interesting or fundamental, you can say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He give his thing, yeah. He really reads a lot.
Yeah, you really do have to read a lot. I mean, because there's just so much information out there that if you just stop reading, I mean, I don't, you're not really. It's like a daily renewal. I don't understand why people don't read books.
Yeah, especially if you discover, someone who will give you life. Like some people, when they write, they don't write to write something smart. They don't write